it's 2 o'clock, so let's get started. The second part of getting started with ArcGIS Online. Seems like a while now since we did the first one. So this one has another smattering of topics. I know the last time we added data from tables, but today I want to show you how to use Google Sheets. It's something that I recently discovered working with Health District 5, and I thought it was so cool that I should, pass it along. We'll talk a little bit more about pop-ups and using Arcade in those pop-ups and making custom pop-ups and just, making them look a little bit nicer than the generic default pop-up. We'll talk about symbolizing quantitative data. We talked about how maps can lie. So either I'm giving you a warning or I'm teaching you how to lie with your maps, but I'll give you more information. We'll talk a little bit about enrichment and just take a look at all the different pieces of information that you can add to the data on your map. Then I'll talk about hosted joins, which is something that I learned from Department of Health and Welfare. Joanne there was using it, and it's a really cool trick, so I wanted to pass that along. The next one, managing surveys, I think is going to be a really good one for anybody who has surveys out there and keeps going back to the same spot doing the surveys over and over, or having worked at water resources and having people go out and take measurements at different wells and meter readings. This is kind of like a really handy way to show them on a map, but only show the most recent one. And for the managing surveys, to actually go in and edit surveys that people have submitted and just getting an overview of those. Then we'll talk about some basic analyses. It's more sort of pointing you to where they're at and hopefully sort of show you and then let you get started, including routing. And then finally, we'll talk about some app templates and explore the web builder, web app builder a little bit more and looking at some different widgets. So I'm hoping that I timed this right. I know I'm always trying to cram it into 2 hours, but let's see how far we get this time. So last time we talked about how you can add data to your map by directly in your map going to add and then add layer from file and then pointing it to a CSV table that's on your computer. There's a different way of doing it that I actually like a little bit better. Because if you do it this way, the layer is sort of there, but it's not really there. And so, for example, if you like to show it on your dashboard, it seems like it's just not showing up. But the way I'm going to show you now, it's just directly a hosted layer. It's fully functional. You can filter it. It will show up on your dashboard. So let's start with that. And then after that, we'll play around with a Google spreadsheet. Okay, so here we go. So this morning, all of you should have had the workbook. So we'll get started by just logging into ArcGIS Online. So let's do that. And then sign in using our account. And let's sign in. So for this first exercise, I needed to get a table with addresses and coordinates. And I thought it would be easiest for those classes not to have to send you exercise data. So the first piece I need you to download yourself from the ITD open data site. So if I go to my PowerPoint and I put this link underneath, I put it in your PDF, but not as part of a slide, just separate. So you should be able to click on it. But let me go here and get a layer that has all the district offices for ITD. So this is a great place to get data. So click on download, and we will be downloading this as a spreadsheet. And so fairly quickly, a little table opens up at the bottom left. I like working in Google Chrome, so if that's what you're using, it shows up in the bottom left. So let me go ahead and open that up so we can take a look at it. So looking here, I need to find a way to actually geocode this. So assign it a location on Earth. And I can tell that there's two different ways of doing that. So I got my X and Y coordinates, and I can tell that those are geographic coordinates because we are here, at about 116 west latitude, longitude rather, and somewhere between 42 and 47 latitudes. Those are regular coordinates. You can also see that we have a address, a city, a state, and a zip code. So technically, we can use either one of those to put those district offices on a map. So what I am going to do is I'm going to save this, and I am going to put this. I'll just put it on my desktop for now. Desktop right here, and I'll just call it, district offices. That will do. And I'll hit save. Okay, so now that I have those, I can go back to my ArcGIS Online, and when I click on content, I have the ability to add this table right from here. So the last time we had to open up a map and then add it to the map. In this case, right underneath the word content, we can just go ahead and just add an item from your computer. So I'll need to go ahead and choose my file, which I put on my desktop. Which I thought, oh, here it is, district offices. So I'll open that up. So I picked my file. That's good. I've done that. Need to give it a title. So those are the ITD offices. I can give it some tags. So I'll just say ITD. I'm just going to put in the word temp here. So if at some point in the future, I'm going to clean out my ArcGIS Online, I can just sort by temp and just delete everything that's there. Now the key here is that this is immediately published as a hosted layer. So it's immediately like a real thing, a real service that will, really show up on your map. And if you use that map for any apps like a dashboard, it will actually show up there as well. So this is where we can choose if we would like to locate features by coordinates or by addresses. And in this case, I'll use coordinates since they are there. It doesn't cost any credits to do geocoding by coordinates. If I were to use addresses, it will consume, very small amount of credits. You can do about 1,000 addresses for 40 credits. So it's not going to break the bank, but since I have the coordinates, I'll go ahead and do that. So here, it already correctly guessed that my X field, so if you think in Cartesian coordinate system, your X-axis goes left to right, which is your longitude. Your Y coordinate goes up and down, which is the latitude. And if you're like me and you keep confusing the words latitude and longitude, with the word latitude, I always think it kind of sounds like ladder, and so it goes up. But whatever helps. So it looks like this is already configured just right by default. So I'll go ahead and add in my item. Need to provide a path. Publish. I already put in my latitude and longitude. I think we got that. Let's see what it's complaining about. You must provide a path to your item. Oh, no file chosen. It must have just gone again. So let me just click on district office again. And I'll just call this version 2. Because while I was talking, it looks like it's been doing things in the background. And then let's just go ahead and add this item. Let's see if anything has been added in here. I'm just going to start from scratch. This probably just happens because this is a demo. All right, going to open that up. Already exists in this folder. Okay, well, then we'll just go ahead and give it a different name. All right, version 2. There we go. Let's open that. Okay, good. It found it. District Office version 2. Tags, ITD, temp. All right, publish as a hosted layer. It already figured out the latitude, longitude. So that's looking good. Fingers crossed. Add item. All right, that's more like it. Very good. Okay, and now if we want to, we can see that in a map. And there are the offices, ITD offices all over the state. Okay, so next, let's take a look at a Google Sheet. So let me go back to my PowerPoint slide, and you should have this in your workbook, a link to a Google Sheet. So let me go there. All right, and I'm assuming that many of you are familiar with that. Now, let me know here. I think I shared this with everybody. So are you guys able to open this up? Okay, maybe. Okay, very good. And hopefully you guys are also able to edit it. So it is asking here for a name, address, city, and state of one of your favorite restaurants. So if you can go ahead and just find, one address of a restaurant that you like. And I already put in a couple that I like. So, there we go. Guess you guys are Googling right now to see where the actual address is. So there we go. All right, so while you guys keep working on this, I'm gonna show a little demo in the background on how to add this into your ArcGIS Online. So you guys stay there, and I'm gonna show you back to my map, and let's see here. So I am going to go back to my content, and I am going to open up and add another item. So add item, and in this case, I am going to add it in from a cloud drive. So since we're working in a Google Sheet, I'll click on Google Drive. And so we are looking for a Google Sheet, which is where you have your data. And so right now we are working on our favorite restaurants. The first time that you're setting this up, it's going to ask you for your Google username and password, so it can actually make a link to it. And so for our favorite restaurants, um, that sounds like a good title. And I'll just put in my tag as food. I'll just put in temp again, so I know that I can get rid of it later at some point. Um, I would like to locate the features using the addresses and places, which is you guys are typing in the addresses right now. And my fields are matched up just right. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to put in version 2 here because I tried this out myself beforehand. So let me go ahead and publish that. Okay, so 7 out of the 9 locations were matched. So you can see at least we got a couple extra because when we started, there were only 2 of them. So let's take a look at the 7 that were matched. So let me open this one up in a new tab so we can also keep this one open. Okay, and you can see that we now have a number of restaurants, and they seem to be mostly located in Boise. Okay, so let me just go ahead and zoom to the layer. Actually, I don't know quite where that went. Okay, there we are, very good. Okay, so now as more addresses are being updated, you can synchronize this and get new ones added to the map. When you go to the overview page, which is sort of the first page that showed up when we published it at first, we can go ahead and click on update data and we can overwrite the entire layer. So it goes back into Google Drive and it's going to pick up those new addresses. So we'll see if maybe a couple more are being matched right now. Because earlier we had 7. Oh, and now we picked up all 9 of them. So we got those 2 extra, probably people that were still um, putting in their information. So we refresh this map. We should now see all 9 of them. So so I thought this was pretty cool because it's another place where people can share Google Sheets and sort of have data up there and then easily synchronize it on a map. So with that, let's go ahead and start working on some pop-ups. So let's see, we put the district offices on this map, and that's okay, we can just keep working on this map. I'll just turn off the district offices though. And so I just got to the top of page 8 in your workbook. So we don't have to click on map on the top of our screen because we're already in a map, but we do need to add in some data. So let's go to the Living Atlas. And if you can do a search for public school. Then the first one that pops up here, the one by the Geo platform, is the one I would like you to add in to your map. So I'm just going to click add and then go back. So this pretty much gives you schools for the entire United States. And to keep it a little bit more manageable, let's just stick with those that are in Idaho. So what we can do is we can put on a filter. So in the content pane, click on the little funnel, the filter. And we want to put in the state, which is equal to, and then we need to pick Idaho. So I'll just click on unique, and then it will give me the drop-down list from which I can pick Idaho. And then I can apply the filter. Okay, that looks a little bit more manageable. Okay, So let's take a look at the attribute table and see what we can work with here. What kind of items that we can put in our pop-up. So it looks like we have the name of the school, address, city, the state, which we just used, as well as over here, you can see that some of them, a little bit further, some of them have a website. Actually, not very many of them, but some of them do. For example, this one here. And then it will also tell you the enrollment, so the number of students, the grades that are covered by that school, for example, from kindergarten to grade 8, and also the number of full-time teachers. And you can see that this one is listed as minus 999, and that's basically them telling you that they don't know how many teachers they have. And that's something that you need to be aware of, as we will see later on when we start doing some statistics on those numbers. Okay, so let's close this table now that we have an idea of the different things that we can put on there. And let's go ahead and click on the 3 dots. Somebody made a good observation that some things look like pancakes, other things look like waffles, and this should be called a croissant. So anyway, click on the dots and go to configure pop-up. And there's different ways that you can go about doing the pop-up. So the default is a list of attributes, and actually many maps that you see just has a list of attributes. And sometimes they're not even all that nice. So for example, here, you know, the name, address, that's fine, but then you get the different codes, you get abbreviations, and it doesn't look very professional, especially if you have all those, you know, abbreviations where it's not quite sure what they mean. The next option is to only put in one field, no attribute information. Obviously, the pop-up only has the title in it, but the one that I like is the custom attribute display. So that's the one that I would like to spend a little bit more time on. And I think a question just came in. In pop-ups, can you add a field to the title name? Yes, you can. So on the right-hand side here, you can just add different attributes right here, and you can type in here like words yourself to put it all together. So you can really also, you know, customize the title of your pop-up. All right, so we're clicked on configure. We're starting at the top of page 9. So let's start with the pop-up title. So let's delete what is currently there. And then let's click on plus, which will give you the list of the different attributes that you can choose from. And yes, there is a way to change the size of the pop-up, change the size of the font in there. You can make it larger, smaller. The pop-up title itself doesn't have a lot of customizing options. All right, so for the pop-up title, let's put in the name, which is the name of the school. All right, and then after we click on configure, we can actually start working on the bigger body of the pop-up. So this handy little button here allows you to basically click and drop them, you know, right into the pop-up. So let's first type in the address. So I'll just go ahead and click on the address. Next, below it, I am going to put the city. And then typically the way it is configured, like on your mail, there's a comma, then it will tell you the state, and then finally there's a space, and then the zip code. So that's typically how an address is formatted. All right, so let's see how this works. Oh, and for making it bigger and smaller, you can set the different sizes right here. So to make your pop-up smaller, You can change the size, or you can try and condense your different attributes there. Like for example, city, state, zip, putting 3 of them on the same line. So let me click OK here and OK over here, and let's see what our pop-up looks like. So this is what we've done so far. Then take a look at the workbook, and we're just going to keep formatting it so it looks like the example in the workbook. So I'll just go back to configure the pop-up, configure. So it looks that after this, I would like to put in the phone number. So I'll just type in phone, and then I'll just pick the phone number here, which is referred to as telephone. So somewhere on this list, there we go, telephone. And then I can go ahead and say this school serves children from grade, and then I can pick the lower grade. That's not the one I wanted, the lower grade. So that is the starting grade. And actually, I would like to put that over here. And then I'll just say 2, and then I'll pick my ending grade. End grade. All right. And then I can say this school has, and then I'll put in the number of teachers. So that was the full-time teachers, and the number of students that are enrolled. So that was the enrollment students. So instead of giving a list, I can sort of put together like a block of text with all this information. And then at the bottom, I'm going to say directions to the school. Okay, and we'll work with that a little bit later on. So click OK here, and OK again, and let's check our pop-up, see what it looks like. So that's looking pretty good to me. All right, so next, let's highlight a couple of items. So now I'm on step 15 at the bottom of page 10. So I'll go back to configure pop-up, click configure, and I am going to make the phone number bold. Then to really sort of have it stand out, the grades that are being covered, I'm just going to highlight that. And I can, for example, make this white and really change the background color to something a little bit darker so it stands out. So it's basically the sky is almost the limit in terms of, you know, how you would like to format this and the font and the sizes and everything. So let me click OK here and OK again and see how that changed my pop-up. There we go. So the next piece, and this is especially helpful if this is going to be part of a mobile app that people are going to be using on their phone, maybe to go to those different schools. So next I'll show you how to add in directions to this school. There's different ways that you can do it. So one way is to use the ArcGIS Online, sign in, and use credits in ArcGIS Online to do that. But especially if you are sharing this with people that don't have an ArcGIS Online account or don't have credits associated with it, it's going to be a lot harder. So as a shortcut here, we're just going to be using Google Maps because everybody has, you know, a browser on their phone or on their pad or whatever they're using, and they can just go to Google and then just have Google give them turn-by-turn directions. So the URL that we will use is in your workbook. Let's see, I need to go ahead a little bit here. adding data. We've making pop-ups, filtering. Oh, I didn't talk about this filtering. Might as well talk about this while we're here before we do the Google pop-ups. Because I do want to touch on this just a little bit, just to make you aware of how this works. So earlier we filtered all the schools in Idaho, and it was a pretty straightforward filter. I mean, all we did was the state equals Idaho, straightforward. So, but what if we want to get the schools in Idaho and in Oregon? So in that case, there's sort of two conditions that need to be met. So in that case, you would click add another expression, and then below it, we say state equals Oregon. Now there's two ways that we can set this. If you click the drop down here, you can set the other one. It says here, display features that match any of the following expressions, and the other option is all of the expressions. So you have to think about that, because if here we had said it needs to match all expressions, we would say, well, this school needs to be in Idaho and in Oregon at the same time, so no schools would pop up. Now, if, for instance, you are doing a slightly different filter, then you might say, okay, well, I want to see only schools in Idaho that can go up till grade 12. So I want to basically filter out all the ones that stop at grade 6 or 7 or 8. So what we would do here is we would put the first one in just as is, then we put in an additional one, and grade equals 12. And here we need to make sure that we say it needs to match all of the following. So every school needs to, match both of them. If in this case we had said any, then we would get all the schools in Idaho and then all the schools that go up to grade 12 in the entire country. So it's always good to just double check and make sure that you got this portion just set just right. Okay, let's see where we're at, because we have done some of this already. We have done that. Okay, so we're going to configure the URL. So let's see what this does. So first of all, the first part over here will open up a browser. So if you're on a computer, a phone, it will just open up a browser. Then it will ask for directions. I mean, the different options there is you can ask for directions, or you can ask to do a search. And so you're basically calling up application programming interface at Google that will then take information and then will spit back directions. And so we basically just tell it, hey, the destination is the latitude and longitude, which was incorporated and included in this data set. And those fields are called latitude and longitude. So let's give that a try. I'm just going to copy that and go back to my map. And so we need to attach that to this link here, this directions to the school. So I need to go back in, configure my pop-up, configure. I am going to highlight the directions to school, click on the link and put in my URL and click update. And then click OK and OK again. So this might be a good little trick to get maybe around some of the limitations using the router that comes with Esri. Okay, so we wanted to go to the Lohman Elementary School. Let's see, moment of truth. And indeed, it just gives me my turn-by-turn directions on how to get to that school in Lohman. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Nice little trick. Or, you can put it in your own apps if you have to go around and drive and find those locations. All right, so we are at the top of page 13. Okay, so we're going to add in a pie chart. So we got this far, so let's go ahead and go back to configure our pop-up. Click on configure. Actually, I did that wrong because the pie charts and the other media are right at the bottom. So here we have the option to add in an image. So this is going to ask you for a URL that goes to a picture. We can put in a pie chart, a bar chart, column chart, line chart, but in our case, let's just put in a pie chart. So then it's going to ask you, what information would you like to show in this pie chart? So I'm just going to put in the students and the teachers. So most of the pie is going to be taken up by students, and a portion of it is going to be taken up by teachers, but it gives you, a visual sense of the teacher to student ratio. So then I need to pick out my pie pieces. So one piece of pie is going to be the enrollment, and the other piece of pie is the teacher. So let me click OK on that and OK on that. And let's take a look. And here is my pie chart. So I would personally, I have to admit, go a little bit deeper to sort of learn a little bit more on how to configure that and how to label those different pieces. But at least, it is possible and sort of where you need to start looking for this. Now, the next piece, we're going to start using Arcade to add some more custom labels in here. So Arcade is a language that you can use with ArcGIS Online, and it's particularly well suited for changing attribute numbers and doing calculations with attributes. And so in the next example, and that is the bottom of page 9. Oh, wait, I think I need to show that on a slide. I don't think I've given you guys that slide. This one here. Okay, so instead of showing it just with the pie chart, I would also like to add in a new attribute in the table that gives me the number of students per teacher. And we can calculate that by taking the number of students. For example, we have 100 students, and then we look at the number of teachers, for example, 5, and then we know that for every teacher, there's 20 students. And so we can just calculate that with an easy division. Okay, so we do that by adding an Arcade expression. So let's do that next. So we need to go back to configure pop-up, and then under attribute expressions, we can click add. So here it gives you access to what are they? Variables. So attributes, in this case, the different layers, the map itself, and then within there, all the different attributes. So for starters, let's just start easy and let's click on edit and actually change the name of this equation. So I'll just call this the student to teacher ratio, because that's what's gonna show in the field. Next, you would want to click on globals, which is where we are. And then those features here, those are basically the different attributes that you can find in this table. So I am just going to click on the right here, and then I can see all the different attributes. And you can see they're formatted just a little bit different. I mean, just basically to match the Arcade language, but here they are. Let me see here. We've done that. And so we need to find the enrollment. So let's go down, enrollment. I think I blew right past it. Population, oh, this is done alphabetically. Enrollment, there it is. And you can see it just pops up right on the left there. So I don't really have to type anything. I just click away. And I want to divide that by the full-time teachers. Okay, so this is my equation. Then I'll just click on test, and I see my ratio right here. Okay, so I'm gonna click OK here, And now I am going to add that to my pop-up. So I'll just configure, and just above the directions, I will type the student to teacher ratio is, and then now I can click on my plus again, and if all went well, I can find that equation that I just put in there. So when I click OK, OK again, and then I just click on a school, I can see that my student to teacher ratio is just over 20 students per teacher. So this is a good way to add in even more information. Now, let's say that you're not very excited to talk about 0.2 students and you would like to round that to the nearest whole number. Anytime you have issues like that, where you don't like the number of decimals or you don't like the way a date is formatted, you would always fix that in the configure pop-ups, configure the attributes. Then at the very bottom, I can find my expression. I can see that it's a number, and currently it has 2 decimal places. So if I were to go here and change that to 0, and click OK, and then try it again, you can see that it's now rounded to a whole number. Okay, so the last trick that I want to show you in terms of pop-ups and arcade is that quite often, especially if you are showing the results of a survey, sometimes people don't answer a question. And so instead of ending up with, this question and then a blank space for no answer, this question and blank space for no answer, if we can just take out all those pieces that don't have an answer, and we can basically decide when a label should appear in the pop-up and when it should not. And so when we were looking at the websites earlier, we could tell that some of them had websites, but most of them said that they were not available. So what I will do is sort this in ascending order, because I would like to find one that actually has a website. Let's see, website, this one here. So I'll just highlight it, and then I would like to zoom my map there. So after we are done configuring it, we can use that particular school just to try our pop-up, and we'll just center on that selection. So this is the school where I would like a website to show up, but not all the others that don't have a website available. And hopefully you can see how you can extrapolate that with your pop-ups, where maybe some of the attributes are empty in the table. Okay, so we've done that. Okay, so let's click on configure pop-up, and then we are going to add another expression. So let me click, not there, here, I'm going to add another expression. And in this case, what we want to do, let's talk through the logic of it here. Okay, here we go. So what we want to do is we would like to put in an if statement. And so if the condition, and the condition is the website is not available, then we want to show nothing. We want to return like a blank, space. But if the website is available, so this expression is false, then we would like to show this website or website and then the name of the website next to it. So this is the if statement that we are going to use. So for starters, let's take a look at the functions and see what is available in terms of if statements. So I'll just type in if, And I can tell that I have an if statement here. And honestly, I don't know why there's two I's in if, but there are. Okay, so here it says the condition if it's true and the condition if it's false. Okay, so now to make my life a little bit easier, instead of trying to type in, what the website label should look like here, I'm going to just separate it out a little bit so it's easier for me to see what's going on and create two variables. So my first one is a variable if there is no website, in which case I would like that to be like an empty space. So I'll just put in, two quotes with nothing in between. However, if there is a website, then I want to put in the words, the website, and then the actual name of the website. So I want to put two things together. So if you're familiar with Excel, that is referred to as concatenate. So let's see if there's a concatenate function in here. Concatenate, there it is. Okay. So it says we need to put in an array of values. And so it just basically just gives an example here. So different values with a comma in between. So my first value is just going to simply read website. And then my second value, I'm going to pick up out of the attribute table. So to do that, I need to go back to my globals, into my features, and actually pick up the website here. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is I need to put in a conditional expression that you can test. So it's either true or it is false. And so in this case, I can say, well, the feature website is equal to, and I think they were all called not available. When we looked in the table, it said not available, not available, not available, except for those 2 or 3 that did have one. Okay, so notice how I'm putting in 2 equal signs. If it was 1 equal sign, then basically I'm just saying, okay, change the website, whatever is in the table, take out the actual URL for the website and put in no value, which actually will give you an error message here because you're not allowed to do it and you don't actually want to do it. But if you are putting in 2 equal signs, it's basically saying, okay, you need to compare those 2. So if those 2 are the same and it's true, then I would like to put in like no website. So in other words, it's going to look over here and put in the empty quotes. And if there is a website, it's going to look over here and put in a website. All right, so let's go ahead and test that. All right, so I am not discouraged that my result is empty because most of the rows had not available, in which case I expect it to be empty. So I'm just going to go click on OK and see how that turned out. So they typically show up on the right-hand side. Oh, actually it won't appear in the table, but we can put it in our label. Okay, so for the custom configure, and I'm just going to put the website right after the phone number here. So I can click on add and then go all the way down. And I know that this is the custom expression I just made. So let me click OK on that and OK on this here. So if I done this well, then I should see a website here. And there it is, website, and it will give me a website there. However, if I pick on a different school that doesn't have a website, you can tell that there's like no information here altogether. So this is a good way to keep your pop-up short by just taking out, labels that don't have any information with them. All right, so let me see how we're doing on time here. All right, so a little bit about symbolizing quantitative data. So I am going to add in a layer with counties. So back in your, let me see where we're at here. Okay, I'm gonna show you a couple slides and then we'll get right into it from current slides. So this is something that we talked about in the very first class, that maps can lie. And so at that time, I was asking you which one of those two maps has more crime. And there, of course, you're assuming that red is bad and yellow is not so great, but green is just perfectly safe. Um, and so the map on the left, at the time, we agreed that it seems like crime is more of a problem there than it is on the right, even though they're both the same data, they're just categorized a little bit different. And when I say categorized, it's like, the boundaries in between, which like a crime statistic falls to get a certain color assigned to it. Um, and so there are three different symbolization or categorization schemes that I would like to talk to you about. So the first one is the quantile. And so here under values, so let's say that there's 20 points on your map. And so each point has a value associated with it. So 1 or 3 or 12. And so what I've done here is I basically just ordered them from smallest to largest. And so you can see that there's like 2 3s and 2 6s, and it goes all the way up to 20. So for quantile, every class has the same number of values. So let's say if we have like 4 groups and 20 values, then each one of them needs to have 5. And so let's say if we were to symbolize them from green to red at the top here, you can see that the categories kind of fall out like this. So for example, the value 14 is considered to be green and maybe good. The next way of dividing it up is, say, an equal interval. And so here the minimum and the maximum value are 20 apart. We have 4 categories. So the first sort of 5 fit in the first group, and then values, that fall between 6 and 10 in the next one, and 11 and 15 in the next one. So you can see that the range here for all of those is the same, but doesn't have all the same number of points that would fall into those. So in this case, 14 would still be yellow, but 18 would already be green. And the last one, the natural breaks, looks for just breaks in the data. So as you start looking from this list from top to bottom, you can see that there's a bit of a gap between the number 3 and 6. It kind of jumps over there. And then again, between 7 and 9, it seems like you're skipping a number there. And then here between 14 and 18, you're skipping another number. So your data is kind of trying to look at it that way. And so let's just take a look at this one right here. So if you have the following numbers with an equal interval, and so that would basically mean from smallest to largest from 1 to 20, would that be the best way of doing it? So you can see with those numbers here, you have quite an outlier in the number 20. There's a big gap right there. But because each one needs to have the same range, you're still looking at, okay, I go from 1 to 20, that's a range of like 20. And I have 4 intervals, so I need to put 1 through 5, 5 through 10, 10 through 15. And what's going to happen here is that you're going to have, very few values, or sometimes not even any values fitting in one of those ranges. So you might have, green and yellow and red on your map, but nothing, orange in between. So anyway, let's play around with that. And so the first thing that we would need to do is add in some data that we can play with. So we have arrived at the bottom of page 18, and I am going to copy and paste this layer here. All right, back to my map. Add layer from the web. It's an ArcGIS web service, and I'll just paste in my URL, and then I'll just add in the layer. Okay, so those are the counties for this class here. And let's see what attributes we have with that. So what I put in here is the square miles, the population, and based on those two, I can calculate the number of people per square mile. So I also calculated that for you. So to start symbolizing this and maybe help make it pop a little bit more, I always like a more bland base map, but that might just be me. So but I'm gonna turn it into something gray. And let's go ahead and start symbolizing. So we'll click on the change style button, and we'll symbolize it by the density, which I think is the fairest comparison, because you're just looking at a square mile in Ada County or in Clark County. A square mile is a square mile. You don't have to worry about them being different sizes. I do like to go with count and amount. And then I'll just go ahead and click on my options there. So to compare the different types of classification, I'll click on classify data, and then I can pick my number of classes. And so it's a balancing act, because you don't want to have two classes because you're losing a lot of the granularity of your data. But you also don't want to get 20 classes, because then people don't really see the difference between one class and another, because most of them are sort of on a color ramp, and it's really hard to see the difference between blue and a slightly darker shade of blue. And so from what I've read, 7 seems to be about the right number where people can sort of make sense of it, but still have enough, categories that you can really show something meaningful. Okay, so right now we are looking at natural breaks, 7 classes. And so let's just do a comparison. So let's take a look at the equal interval. So you can tell here that each one of them has about 70, a range of like 70 in between. I would say that this is not very helpful. What this is telling me is that Ada County has a lot of people, but this sort of, I'm losing my granularity here. And this is probably happening because Ada County is so dense that it basically just skews out everything else. And so there's categories here that don't have any values. If we compare it with the quantile, so we want to make sure that we put the same number of counties in each one of those categories. I think you come up with something a little bit more meaningful, even though you can tell that the largest category of the darkest spends quite a large number, and the ones below it a little bit less. So you're going to have to play around with this and have that fine balance between telling your message but not making your map lie. Okay, so for the enrichment, I am just going to show that to you as a demonstration. Somehow it worked for me last weekend, but last night and this morning it's just been giving me fits. But at the very least, I can show you where it is. So let me do that and see it at the time. I think there's some more interesting stuff coming up later on, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. So let me just click done here. So let's say I'm going to enrich this county layer. So the way that you would go about that is you click on analysis, and there's a whole category for data enrichment. So we're going to enrich this layer. And in this case, I'll pick the counties. Now you can pick anything you want. I'm not sure what the minimum size is for you to get enrichment. I'm sure there is a minimum size, because if you, get down to quarter mile out in the boonies, then, it's probably the one ranch that's like right inside that quarter mile by quarter mile. But You can do it by cities. If you are working with like specific like districts for your agencies, um, you can use pretty much any polygon boundary layer that you want. So next I need to select my variables, and there's certainly a lot to choose from. So a very common one is the population. And what's kind of neat is that you can tell it's the 2020 population. This is being updated nearly every day. So Esri bases this on their census data, but at the same time, they have models running in the background, their own models that basically just estimate like almost on a daily basis or at a daily basis what the population would be right now. And they even can give you some growth estimates going into the future. There is a lot when it comes to demographics, age, and so you can have it in different increments. You can have it by race, by age. There's so much information there. Income variables. I mean, I'll leave it up to you to explore this yourself at some time, but there's a lot of information here that you can just add as attributes to your table. All right, so in my case, I'll just put in the 2025 population. Then I can pretty much leave the rest of it all the default. I have to give it a name, and actually this default folder works for me too. The only thing to be really aware of is this use current map extent. So if I am zoomed in here and I forget to uncheck that and then I run my analysis, I am only going to get results for this area. So if you do intend to use, your entire polygon layer, either make sure to zoom out or uncheck this, or do both. It does consume credits, and then so in this case, because there's 44 counties, it consumes 0.44 credits, which translates into 4.4 cents. So I think we can cover that, and then we can run the analysis. So that might take a minute, and then it's probably going to tell me that there's an error. But I think maybe there's just something going on at the moment on the Esri side. All right, so while we're waiting for this, we'll get back to this. I'd like to start talking about hosted joins. Yeah, it failed. And honestly, I am not sure why it failed. This occasionally happens to me, so I am sorry, because I would have loved to show you what it looks like. And usually it doesn't fail, but somehow last night, this morning, it does. Okay, but let's move on. The hosted joins. So let's open up a new browser tab. And I can just go back to this one, but you can open up a new one, and I'll just go to my slides because I would like you guys to take a look at a survey that I made. We've looked at that. Here. So this is really, a super easy survey. So I don't want you to submit any surveys just yet. We'll do that a little bit later. But just to kind of give you a sense of what data is in here. It's really easy. So this would be an example where somebody is maybe updating a dashboard somewhere, and every day they need to type in, the number of vaccinations in different counties. So we have a date, and then we have all the different counties. And I set this up as an autocomplete, so it's easy to get to a specific county. And then if this is like a 2-dose course, the number of first doses that have been given in a 2-dose course. So basically people that are partially vaccinated, and then people that are completely vaccinated. So that would be like 2 doses of the Pfizer or Moderna, or one dose of the new Janssen, and then they would just hit submit. So I will let you play with this a little bit later, but first I want to set up a hosted join. Okay, so back on our map, I am going to add in the results of this survey. And so, because it's on my profile, I can go to add and then find it in my content. But since I want you guys to also add my layer in there, I gave you guys a URL to it. So in the PowerPoint, let's go over here. You can just copy and paste this URL. And then just like before, we can click add layer from the web, and then just paste it right in there. Okay. So if I open this up, it should look very similar to that survey that we just saw, right? So there's the 1 doses, completely vaccinated, and county. And you can see that there's already data in there. And I put in a date of March the 9th. So this is old. Actually, this is live data from yesterday. Also, you can tell that there's like a weird example text question in there. That is still a leftover from the first time that I published it. And that's something that we'll deal with a little bit later. But right now, we don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and symbolize that. So I'm going to click on my symbol layer, and we'll symbolize it based on the completed vaccinations and counts and amounts by size looks good to me. And so I'll click OK on that, and then I'll click Done. Okay, and to sort of keep my map a little bit less cluttered, I'll just also change the symbols for my counties layer by just showing the location. And then I'll just make it sort of like a see-through, so you can only see the boundaries. So I'll click on symbols. I'll just put in like a black outline, and for the fill, I'll just put in no color. Okay, so here we have the number of vaccinations per county. So instead of showing this data as points on the map, what I would like to do is show them as polygons, so that I can color counties, the whole county, different colors based on the number of vaccines that have been given, or better yet, as a percentage of the entire population that has been vaccinated. Now, earlier we were looking at that county polygon layer that's still on my map, and one of the items in there was the total population. So we know the total vaccinations, the total population. We can do some calculations on that and find out how many people have been vaccinated. So let me click OK here and Done, and then we can set up our hosted join. So to do that, let's click on Analysis. Okay, and I'm going to show you a couple of slides that will help you understand why we're going to set it up the way that we will. Let's first take a look at what a join is and how that works, because I'm throwing the terms around like I think everybody knows what it is, but it wouldn't hurt to sort of either refresh or think about it a little bit more. Okay, so I borrow this example from when I was still working at the Tax Commission. So you can see that there's different plots of land that are owned by different people. And so this first table here shows you who the owner is and what their plot number is. Now let's say that we have a separate table that for each one of those pieces of land, each one of those plots, it tells you the number, but also the value, and perhaps the county and then the assessor that's sort of associated with that county that's going to assess the value, or maybe that's the value that they come up with. So we can join those tables together because we have a primary key. So that is an attribute that is found in both tables that we can basically use to glue those tables together. And so the plot one is here, and then the assessor we know, and we can join those as well. So we join those three tables together. We end up with one table that has the owner name, plot, value, assessor, as well as the method. So basically it combines the information from all those three tables. So now if we were to look at those two tables, we do have a primary key. Both of them have a plot number. And so let's say that we are on the left here and we want to join this table to the table on the left. And so we have like the owner, John Smith, plot 1, and then we don't know if we should be joining the first line here or the second line there. I mean, all of it is going to end up in a table like this, and we can just not simply in one cell put both values. So we really have to pick the first one or the second one. And so this gets into the different types of relationships. So the first example on the previous slide, we had a one-to-one join. So going back here, we have, owner, one plot. This one plot has one value and then one assessor that goes with it. We can have a many-to-one, and that again was the second example here, that we have, many assessors that have the same name in this table, but they are all joined to one row in the other table, which is also not a problem gluing it together. The problem arises in this case when we have what's called a one-to-many relationship. So for this one plot, we have two different types of habitat and we don't know which one to join in. So if you were taking a full-on GIS class, we'd be like, oh, you need to use a relate. But with this in mind, let's take a look and see what's happening with our surveys. So right now, as you've seen, every county shape has one value with it, the most of the vaccinations that have been given. So if we look at just one county, so for example, Bannock here, well, maybe on March 10, a survey is submitted by somebody that says there's 8,000 vaccines given. And then a day later, 9,000, and then a day later, 10,000. So here we have one county with three different records that we're trying to join to it. And so this is a typical one-to-many relationship. But we are only interested in the most recent data. So we don't want to show everything in a relate. We just want to show the most recent data. So when we set up our join, we need to be cognizant that we set it up in such a way that we're only joining one-on-one. And then if the system needs to decide which one of those three to pick, it's always picking the newest one. So that means that if, let's say, tomorrow, somebody else sends in another survey, that this data is no longer being shown on the map, but the new data is being shown on the map. And I can see, for example, when I was still at Water Resources, I can see using this being really handy, because what they would do is check out like different weirs in canals, and they would go there and do a survey and just see if any maintenance was needed there. And so if it was, the little dot on the map would show red and it would tell you what was wrong. Then they would go to the same spot, a week later, fix it, and then basically do another survey. And now the dot would turn green. But you want to make sure that you can see, the latest information instead of, the 20 visits prior. Okay, so when we set up this join, and let me just go back to and do it as a demo. So we were doing a join. All right, so we need to pick a target layer, which were the counties. So we would like to have the Polygon County layers be the end result, but then with the attributes from the survey added in there. Okay, so then we need to choose the layer to join. So those were those daily vaccinations. Then we need to tell it how we are planning to relate those two. In a different analysis, you can say, well, if the point is inside the county, then we want to pick it. In this case, let's just use a primary key, because I know that the name in the Polygon County layer matches the name in my survey. So, and that is the county name. So both of them, it says Ada or Adams or, you know, Camus or Kenyon. All right, so then we need to tell it, are we doing a one-to-one relationship, a one-to-many? So we're doing a one-to-one because I just want to show the one attribute or the one most recent record, just the one. And then here we need to define which one is kept. So this is key here. We want to order this by today's date. So when we looked at the survey, today's date was actually the first question. So that refers to this date in the survey. So not necessarily like today, right now, we're teaching a class, but that's the date that was given in the survey. And then we want to sort it. Okay, so today's date and then sort by, oh here, order by, sorry, order by, and then we want to keep the newest. Okay, and we need to give the resulting layer a name, and I'll just keep the default. And now the key here is, and this is the cool part, this is going to be a live join. So if I leave this unchecked, it will just create this layer and it's now a static layer. So if the vaccination numbers changes, it's not going to be updated. But if I click this one here and set create result as a hosted layer, if the vaccinations update, then this joined layer will update right with it, which is super cool. This does take some credits. See the show credits. Again, not that many. Oh, really, really few credits, 0. And we can actually run the analysis. So if all goes well, and then we look at the table of this joint layer, there it is, then this should be, you know, polygons, which we expected. And then when we look inside, we have the attributes that came from the county layer, as well as the attributes that came from the vaccination survey. So the 1 or 2 doses that have been completed. Okay, so now I need a volunteer. So let's take a look here. And let's just pick Idaho County. So right now, Idaho County has 1,812 completed vaccinations. And so I would like, well, I'd like one of you to go in and complete this survey, but put in different numbers for Idaho County. So if anybody can speak up and volunteer and then submit that in. Okay, I'm assuming not all of you dropped off the call. Okay, well, then I will go ahead and do it myself. So back to the vaccinations here. And let's go to Idaho County. And let's say that now 1,200 people received 1 of 2 doses. And let's say 2,000 of them are completely vaccinated. So I'll just submit that. And if everything went well, I'll have to save my map so I can refresh it. Okay, and then let's take a look at Idaho County. So hopefully that shows the new numbers. And there are the new numbers that I just put in, so you can see that that this is live. Let me see here. Yeah, we still have participants, so that's good. Okay, so let's move on. So this is quite a powerful, the hosted joins. I thought that was a really good thing to know. So let's go to the bottom of page 24 and actually symbolized by the percentage of people that are vaccinated. So what we need to do here is click on symbolize. And I would like to go all the way down to the bottom and then choose a new expression, because the percentage of people that are vaccinated is not on my list yet. So a new expression. And what I need to do is multiply 100 times, and I need to get the number of people that are vaccinated, and divide that by the total population, county population, and let me go ahead and test that. Okay, so in this case, that sounds like a really small number. So number vaccinated divided by the population. Okay. And actually, let's just use it like this. And let's just go ahead and symbolize that. And you can see that some counties are over 13% vaccinated right now. And I guess Idaho County is doing okay because I just increased their numbers. So I'm going to click here. One thing that I don't like about this is that it says here custom. So if this appears on a public map, I'm not entirely sure, what that means. So the way to fix that is to go back to your custom expression, click on the edit button, and we can change the name right here. And let's change it to percent of the people fully vaccinated. And let's go ahead, save that. And let's click OK on that. And you can see that the label is a lot more user-friendly. So it seems like we are done with that. Let me go ahead, save my map. So that's the power of hosted joins. Okay, so we already have the survey results in the map, but let's go ahead and open those up in a new map. And then I want to show you like a little app that you can use to manage surveys that are going out. So maybe you have a field crew that's out there and you basically just want to keep an eye on it. I think one really cool use of this manager and where I first seen it is that one health district has an order form in survey 123. And in the background, they basically just, as the orders come in, they go into the manager and they just change the status of the order. So it goes from like a new order to, sent to the warehouse to delivered. So, and they can use this manager app to basically control that and have those surveys basically flow through. So what we need to do is start up a new map. So we're going to go create a new map. So let's again add in the contents of the survey. So add layer from the web. Let me see if I still have it pasted. There it is. So here are my survey results. And you'll see in a second why it is important to have this just by itself in a map rather than keep piling on the other map. I just want to get a clean map with just this in here. So the name is a little bit awkward, so I'll go ahead and rename this to vaccination survey results and click OK on that. Then I need to go ahead and save my map. And it will ask me to give it a title. So I'll just call this the vaccination survey results management map, and I'll give it some tags. I'll just call temp vaccinations with 2 C's. And right now, yeah, this is an okay spot for me to put it. So let me go ahead and save my map. All right, so to make this manager work, I need to set up a group. You may have already seen, and I've given you some examples where you can basically just build an app like right from a map. There's a couple of unique pre-configured apps that you can only build from like a specific group. So we need to set up a group. So let me go ahead and I'll click on home here. And when I right click on group, I can just open it in a new tab. So I can just leave this map open. And I will need to create a new group. So I'm on step 7 on page 26, create a group. And I'll just call this like demo vaccination manager group. And if you can put your initials at the end, because many of you are part of our organizational account. And so if we all give it the same name, then I think it might get confused. So if you can put in your initials. For tags, I'm just going to put in temp, and I'll just put in vaccine manager. And so I'm pretty okay with all the defaults in here, except for the first one. So this can only be viewed by the group members. And then we can go ahead and create this group. All right. So on the left here, let's go back to this map. So to make sure that we can actually find this, because this needs to go in the group as well, it needs to be shared with the group. I think there's 2 ways of doing it. So I guess one way of doing it is to open up, well, let's do it this way. Let's click on the 3 dots and just click on Save Layer. And vaccine survey results is a good name for it. And I'll just call this temp again, so I know I can delete it later on. And I am going to create this item. So now back in my group, I need to add in 2 items. I need to add in this map, and also I need to add in this layer that's on my map. So just those 2 things need to be shared with that group. So I'll just go back to my group and I will add some items to it. And probably they will show up right on top for you, which is always convenient. And I'll go ahead and add those items to my group. And there they are. Perfect. Okay, so to create the app, we click on create a web app. And this is also, pretty neat if ever you have like a group with some really cool maps in there that you just want to showcase together. There's, galleries that you can make out of it. You can showcase stuff. In this case, we want to use the crowdsource manager. So let's click on that. And then let's create that. And so if there's anybody still on from water resources, doing the stuff with the water measurement information systems and basically monitoring people going out in the field doing those measurements, I think that this app would be really cool for keeping track, what surveys have been done, and if there's any changes that need to be made. For example, if somebody reported like a broken meter, you can go in here and actually change that and fix it up in one spot when that is made. So, I'll go ahead here and type in temp. And let's just go ahead and click done and create that web app. And this is pre-configured to such an extent that you don't really have to do much with it. So with that, let's just immediately just hit save and launch it. Okay, so I just clicked on launch and let's see how this works. Okay, so you can see along the top here, all the different vaccines that are different surveys that have been submitted, and you can sort those up and down. And let's say that one of those surveys, you need to make an edit because somebody made a mistake. You can highlight it here, click on the pencil, and then you can, in essence, just make the change right there. And so I think that this would be nicer if the county column was listed over here. Also, this example text question doesn't really mean anything, so I don't think we need to see that. So with that, let's go back to the map, this vaccination survey, and we can change that by going into the pop-up here, configure the pop-up, configure those attributes. And this is really the first time where I realized why it is helpful to have a display and an edit column. Because honestly, I've never had to use it or set it, different from each other. But this controls what is visible in that app that I was just showing you. So the recording date is good. This example text question, I mean, we really don't have to show that at all. I would like to see the county and have that moved a little bit closer to the top so I can highlight it and move it up. So right now it says the recording date, the county. Now the county I would like to see, but I would never actually change or edit the county name, nor would I want to, edit or change the recording date. But maybe the vaccine numbers are wrong, or maybe there's some last minute new ones that come in and I need to change those numbers and I want to use that manager to do it. So this is where there's a difference between what I said you can see and what you can edit. So I'll just go ahead and click OK on that, click OK. I'll go ahead and save that. And I'll go back to my, my demo here and I'll refresh that and see if those changes that I just made are reflected in here. Okay, so you can see that the county has been moved up, that empty text field or sample question is gone. And when I click on any of those records and I click on the pencil, I cannot edit the county, I can only edit the vaccine doses. So I think this is a really cool app if you need to manage like surveys or manage another data layer that's out there. All right, so let's see what we have left. We have some basic analysis, and let me just show most of those just to kind of highlight what is out there and what you can do. I can still find my old map. Not that one. We're done with that. We're done with this. We're done with that. Our favorite restaurants. I think I must have closed my other maps. So let me go ahead and open that up again. Let's go back to content. And there's the web map that I worked on earlier with the ITD offices on it and all the different work that we did. Okay. All right, so to do any type of analysis, let's just take a look and see what is out there. So we have already done the join features. Aggregate points, you can even do that just on the fly, which is kind of cool. So let's say here for the public offices, we can click this cluster points button, and you can see that it just clusters those schools and areas where there's a lot, you get the bigger symbol, but then as you start zooming in, they start, kind of separating out again. But this might be a good way to show large numbers of points. So the find locations, so we can take those polygons, put a point in the center. There's a trace upstream, trace downstream, so there's a lot of different options here. The data enrichment we have looked at. Analyzing patterns, so we can find hotspots. So basically, if we just wanted to find out, where in the state are the hotspots of all the different schools. If you look on your PowerPoint slide on page 30, near the top, you can see an example of a hotspot analysis on the public school data here. So you can see that. For the proximity, a really cool one is the plan routes. And so I actually do want to do one of those. So I will turn on the district offices of ITD, and we'll just get people driving to all those different district offices. So using proximity, we can plan our routes. And as input layer, we want to drive to all the different district offices. We drive instead of, walking or other type of driving. We'd like to start in Twin Falls. It will tell you like when to start, and this is kind of cool because it will keep track of traffic. Not live, I think, but if you're going at night and there's less traffic, typically it will actually route you a little bit faster. Then the maximum number of vehicles that you're routing. And so let's say that we have, 3 vehicles going out of Twin Falls trying to reach all those different offices. You get charged about 1 credit for each route. So, don't do 1,000 routes, but 1 route can include as many stops as you like. So then we need to tell it how many stops it can do in 1 period of time that you'll set a little bit later on. And so let's say you can stop at 10 different offices. You probably won't need to do that because I don't know that there's that many offices out there. And let's say that after all that driving, you just want to spend 10 minutes in each one of those offices. And because you're doing quite a bit of driving, let's say that you only want to drive about 12 hours before you want to get back to Twin Falls. So for my route end, I have it set to go back to Twin Falls. So again, let me just uncheck my current map extent. So I make sure that I include all the offices, and I am going to run this analysis. And it's kind of cool what comes out of it. So hopefully this won't take too long. If you're wondering what you hear here, there's a lot of dogs barking outside. So after this, I want to show you one type of regular web app and some widgets. And then I think this time we might actually be done on time without me having to skip too much. As usual, every time I'm worried that I don't have enough information to tell you. And then in the end, it's like, oh, that was just almost too much. Okay, so it says here that some stops were not assigned to any routes, and we'll see why that is. So if we go back here, you can tell that the offices in Lewiston and Spokane, or not Spokane, Coeur d'Alene were not visited because we told them that they had 12 hours to drive and they were leaving Twin Falls and they had to be back in Twin Falls 12 hours later. So there was simply not enough time for them to get there. If I had put in maybe 20 hours, they would have been included. So it will tell you quite clearly which ones were not included. And so they divided this up in 3 different routes. It shows you the stops along the way. Okay, so those were the unassigned stops. And so for each one of those stops, it will tell you which route it is part of and what stop along the route it is. It will tell you roughly when you're expecting to arrive, when you're expecting to depart. Oh, this is funny. Oh, this is just the start point. I'm like, they didn't want to hang out there, but this is quite a handy tool, and a couple of different health districts have started using it to route, vaccinations for people that cannot travel to a clinic, but that would like to be vaccinated at home. This has been really, really helpful. And then this here just shows the routes in general, including how much time in minutes it would take you to complete this route, and of that time, how many of those minutes are spent driving, and how many of those minutes are actually spent visiting offices. So here you could tell that they visited 3 offices at 10 minutes each, and they spent hours and hours driving to get there and get back. So that's a pretty cool analysis. Okay, so let me show you one more thing here. So I'll just go ahead and save this map one more time. And let's share it and create a web app. So I have just landed on the top of page 33. So there's quite a large number of apps that you can choose from. So depending on what you would like to do, for example, there's like comparison maps, lots of story maps that you can start up from here, routes, directions, a lot of different things. I find some of them are perfect. If they are perfect the way they are, that's great. I find some of them don't have a lot of room to customize it. So there's been a couple times when I'm like, well, this is 80% of what I want, but I have trouble, getting the last 20%. So the one that I really like to use is the web app builder. And I'll just call this my temp app and go ahead and get started on that. So right here too, there's different themes or templates that you can choose from. And so you can play around with those, of course. The one I'd like to show you here is the dashboard theme. So it's not an actual dashboard like we covered in the previous class, but it kind of looks like a dashboard in the sense that you have, different panels where you can put different things on the screen. And so when we go to widgets, you can see that each one of those numbers, widget numbers, correspond to each one of those panels that are there. If you'd like to change those, you can click on modify the layout. You can, click and drag them. You can delete them. You can add more in there if you want to. So I can just click and drag another one in there. And if I'm happy with it, I'll click OK. And then basically to put different things in those boxes, I can click on those widgets. Now there's also widget spaces that are up here. So we'll do a little bit with that later on, but let me show you what kind of widgets are available. So when you click on a widget on the left, there's a lot of them. So for example, this about, I'd like to use because it is just a really good one where you can sort of put a little bit more information about your map, and it's sort of like right in the top left corner. You can put some verbiage in there. Let's say the second one, this one here, maybe that's where you would like to put in your base map gallery. All of them have, ways that you can customize the widget, along with a link to more information about each widget. And I find that information is usually pretty useful. So let me click OK there. So to put widgets in the map over here, you go and scroll all the way down and you can see another list of widgets. So let's click on the first one here, and let's say that you would like to give people the opportunity to print their map, which is quite common. So we can click OK on that. We can pick the default format. So there's some things that you can customize. And now we can just put it on the map there for them. And we can just add in quite a few different widgets, however we would like to do that. I think a question just came in. I just remembered about the credits. I think there's a website out there, credit cost usage, and that basically tells you for all the different things that you are trying to do, how much credit would be involved. So for example, storing even data. So we just created a couple of hosted feature layers today. They will take up credits. I mean, but very, very small amount, unless your data set is really rather large. But on the flip side, I can tell in our organizational account, and I am as guilty as anybody, we tend to create new stuff, but we don't tend to clear out the old stuff. So I guess a plea to clean out old stuff if you're no longer using it. And so many things are free, but things like geocoding, which means getting a list of like addresses and turning them into points on your map, are credits. Some of the services we use today, like the routing, sort of uses, processing power on the servers that Esri has, and they cost credits. But you can go to this website. As you can tell, I just Googled my way there and find out how much each thing costs. So to close it out here, this thing's not quite done, but you would just save it, launch it. If you wanted to see what it would look like on different devices, there's like simulators in here that will show you. But if you just click launch, it's just going to show it up in just a web browser. So with that, let me show you the last couple of slides. I think we are about here from current slides. Yeah, so we've done that. If you're still fairly new to GIS and you would like to learn more about a specific topic, I recommend this Learn ArcGIS. What's kind of nice is they're just little 10, 15 minutes kind of little exercises, but they're very targeted. So hopefully they just get you on your way and the information that you need. The next class in this series is on April 8th, getting started with story maps. So we'll look at different templates and how to add media and things to that, as well as how to share your story map. And with that, I would like to thank you for participating. You can sign up for any of the other classes. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, since you all work for the state, if you need a second opinion or you know something cool and you want to share that with me, I'm always up for learning new things. A lot of the things that I showed you today were things that I picked up from other people. So with that, thank you and hope to catch you during the next training. Bye.